Hello! We at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, or MPCA, put together this presentation to give you an overview of the MPCA's Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or MS4 program. This presentation is intended for stormwater program managers and staff, as well as those interested in learning more about how stormwater is regulated in Minnesota. Before we get into the MS4 program, let's talk about why we have it. Under the Clean Water Act, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, or NPDS, program was created. The NPDS program addresses water pollution by regulating sources that discharge pollutants to surface waters. At the federal level, the NPDS program has many program areas, one being stormwater. The MPCA is delegated by the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, to run the NPDS stormwater program. This means the MPCA does all permitting and compliance and enforcement at the state level for the federally run EPA. At the MPCA, the stormwater program is divided into three sections: construction stormwater, industrial stormwater, and municipal stormwater, which is the MS4 program. Today we'll talk about the MS4 program. So what is an MS4? An MS4 is a conveyance or system of conveyances, like drainage systems along roadways, streets themselves, catch basins, curbs, gutters, ditches, man-made channels, or storm drains. These conveyances must be owned or operated by a public entity, such as a city, township, county, highway department, or university. The conveyances must be designed or used for collecting stormwater, not combined with sewer, and not part of a publicly owned treatment works. Not all MS4s are regulated, though, only certain ones. To be regulated by the MPCA, an MS4 must meet one of the following criteria. First, MS4s must be located at least partially within an urbanized area and have the potential resident capacity, bed count occupancy, or average daily user population of 1,000 or more. The urbanized area is determined by the latest decennial census and defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. A city or township will be regulated if there is urbanized area, even partially, within its jurisdiction. In addition, municipalities will be regulated if they have a population of at least 10,000. Lastly, municipalities will be regulated if they have a population of at least 5,000 and discharge to a water that needs additional protection. These waters are outstanding resource value waters, trout lakes or streams, and impaired waters. To find out if your community discharges to one of these waters, view the MS4 mapping tool. We've included a link at the end of this presentation. Stormwater permits require permittees to reduce pollutants in stormwater to discharge clean stormwater. Clean stormwater is stormwater without pollutants, chemicals, or debris like litter. This is important because in Minnesota, the storm sewer systems discharge to surface waters, oftentimes without being treated first. So the MS4 program minimizes the amount of pollution being discharged to our lakes, rivers, and wetlands. In Minnesota, the vast majority of those who are regulated in the MS4 program are regulated under the MS4 General Permit, which covers about 250 entities. In addition to the MS4 General Permit, the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul are each regulated under their own individual permits. The individual and MS4 general permits require permittees to develop stormwater pollution prevention programs, also called SWIPs. SWIPs implement activities to educate about, prevent, and minimize stormwater pollution. Permittees must have measurable goals to gauge the effectiveness of the program, and they must evaluate their programs to see if they're on track to meet those goals. SWIPs are framed around 6 minimum control measures, or MCMs, that require the local stormwater program managers to address certain practices that prevent or reduce stormwater pollution. This webinar will go through the expectations for each of the MCMs. MCM 1 is Public Education and Outreach. This MCM is for stormwater program managers to educate and inform their community on the impacts of stormwater pollution, the steps that can be taken to prevent negative stormwater impacts, and how the public can identify and report illicit discharges, which are discharges to the storm sewer system that are not entirely stormwater. Stormwater staff cannot be everywhere at all times. But by educating those who live and work in their community, more people will know how to spot and report stormwater pollution, which will only improve water quality across the state. Under MCM 1, permittees are required to develop a public education implementation plan. The implementation plan is the foundation for the outreach program and describes program goals and how progress towards achieving the goals is measured and evaluated, who outreach materials are intended for, how materials will be distributed, and which staff are involved in the outreach program and their roles. Permittees are also required to develop and distribute education material. This material should, at a minimum, focus on a stormwater issue that is important to the community. Maybe it's addressing sediment in a popular lake so the beaches are not closed due to algal blooms. Or maybe it's reducing the amount of residential salt used during the winter to protect a local wetland habitat. In addition to the priority issue, permittees must distribute materials that address what illicit discharges look like and how people in the community can report them if they see one. The Regional Stormwater Protection Team, or RSPT, is a partnership of cities, counties, townships, colleges, universities, state agencies, and tribal lands in the Duluth area and the connecting with their community by focusing on issues that are specific to the Lake Superior area. For example, the RSPT developed a public service announcement following the life of a bobber as it enters the storm sewer system to it being discharged into the lake. This messaging might not be applicable to some MS4s in southern Minnesota. Similarly, the RSPT has created materials on recognizing illicit discharges in ditched storm sewer systems, which is more appropriate for their area than in fully developed areas. MCM 2 is public participation and involvement. This MCM is all about actively involving the public in the development and modification of the SWIP. Everyone brings a different perspective to issues, including water quality issues, so it is important to hear from a variety of voices to see if and what changes can be made to local stormwater programs. Under MCM 2, permittees are required to make the SWIP document, which gives a high-level overview of the SWIP, annual reports, and anything related to the SWIP available to the public. In addition, permittees must solicit and consider public input through at least one opportunity each year. This can be at public meetings or other large public gatherings, such as fairs or other municipally wide events. For example, after having limited success getting input on their SWIP at the annual public meeting, the City of Faribault is coupling their annual input opportunity with existing events, like the Faribault Chamber Business Expo and the Rice County Fair. This has been more effective in getting feedback about their SWIP. MCM 3 is Illicit Discharge Detection and Elimination, or IDDE. Like I said earlier, Minnesota's storm sewer systems bring stormwater directly to surface water without being treated at a treatment plant. So recognizing and eliminating illicit discharges reduces stormwater pollution and improves the water quality of our surface water. Under MCM 3, permittees are required to have and enforce a regulatory mechanism, like an ordinance or code, which prohibits illicit discharges, map the entire storm sewer system within their community, and develop procedures of how municipal staff will investigate, locate, and eliminate illicit discharges and respond to spills. Following these procedures, municipal staff should include illicit discharge inspections into all inspections they complete, whether it is outfall inspections or stockpile inspections. Staff must also identify and inspect priority areas for illicit discharges, such as industrial or manufacturing areas. If illicit discharges are observed during these inspections, staff must investigate and eliminate the source of the discharge. In order to do this effectively, all field staff, including seasonal staff, must be trained on illicit recognition and reporting. The Stormwater Program staff from Mankato are always on the lookout for illicit discharges. They use mobile cameras to televise storm sewer systems to look for illicit connections and observe non-stormwater flow. They also charge the party responsible for the illicit discharge for staff time and expenses incurred while investigating and eliminating the illicit discharge. MCM 4 is construction site stormwater runoff control. The EPA estimates that up to 150 tons of soil per acre run off of uncontrolled construction sites every year, degrading our lakes, rivers, and wetlands and harming aquatic habitat. MCM4 aims to limit the amount of sediment that leaves sites during construction activity by requiring permittees to adopt and enforce a regulatory mechanism that is at least as strict as the MPCA's construction stormwater permit for erosion, sediment, and waste controls. Permittees must also have procedures in place for reviewing site plans, conducting construction site inspections, and receiving and considering public complaints of noncompliance at construction sites. Permittees are required to inspect construction sites. Construction site inspections are separate activities that happen at a predefined frequency or after rain events. But like most municipal staff, the Stormwater Program staff at the City of Red Wing drive around the city for various reasons throughout the day and see what is happening at construction sites constantly, not just during inspections. If the staff happen to drive by a construction site and see that the site appears to be in order, they will leave a thank you note at the site. This encourages good practices at construction sites and reminds contractors that the city's stormwater staff are looking during non-inspection times as well. MCM5 is post-construction stormwater management, or how stormwater is managed on-site after a construction project is complete. Impervious surfaces wash stormwater directly into storm sewers or surface waters, so rain and snowmelt can't infiltrate, and thus replenish groundwater under paved surfaces. MCM5 requires permittees to have long-term plans of how stormwater will be managed on-site to reduce pollution reaching surface water and help groundwater. Permittees must have a regulatory mechanism that requires proposed construction projects use green infrastructure techniques and practices such as green roof, water reuse, or urban forestry to manage stormwater. In addition, permittees must have a regulatory mechanism that requires stormwater to be treated on-site. Permittees must require that new development projects do not increase the discharge of stormwater volume, total suspended solids, and total phosphorus. For redevelopment projects, permittees must require a net decrease from pre-project conditions in the discharge of stormwater volume, total suspended solids, and total phosphorus. Although infiltrating stormwater is a crucial component of the hydrologic cycle, it may not be appropriate at every construction site, so permittees must also restrict or prohibit infiltration in 8 situations, such as if the site has contaminated soils. For instances where total suspended solids and total phosphorus cannot be managed on site, like when one of the infiltration restrictions or prohibitions applies, permittees must have provisions for when and how they will allow off-site treatment. To make sure proposed construction activity is in accordance with all of these regulatory mechanism requirements, permittees must review site plans like they do for MCM4. Permittees must also have plans and agreements to ensure there is a party responsible for long-term maintenance of best management practices that are installed to treat stormwater. St. Louis Park has incorporated stormwater management into all city projects through their Living Streets program. The Living Streets program intends to make St. Louis Park more walkable and livable and reduce environmental impacts of transportation projects. Through the Living Streets program, the city's transportation projects support urban forestry and improve the quality of stormwater runoff by reducing the volume. MCM6 is pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations. This MCM is how the municipality will prevent stormwater pollution from their own operations. This can be from any municipal operation like waste management, fueling vehicles, or turf management. Under MCM6, permittees must inventory all municipally owned facilities that pollute stormwater. Examples of municipal facilities include public works yards, vehicle maintenance facilities, public swimming pools, and chemical storage areas. For facilities that impact stormwater, the permittees must implement best management practices to prevent or minimize stormwater pollution. Permittees must also have a procedure for how and when municipally owned stormwater ponds will be assessed to determine if they are still functioning effectively. Permittees must also inspect municipally owned structural stormwater BMPs every year, stormwater ponds and outfalls once each permit term, and inspect stockpiles and storage and material handling facilities quarterly. Based on the results of the inspections, permittees must conduct maintenance to ensure continued protection of stormwater. Lastly, permittees must train employees appropriately for their jobs. The person conducting site plan reviews must be trained to know what to look for in terms of erosion, sediment, and waste controls, as well as post-construction stormwater management. Or, staff conducting site inspections must be trained on what to look for in the field. Dakota County is leading by example with their de-icing program. By using computerized standards, magnesium chloride, and training staff on proper winter maintenance techniques, they were able to reduce salt use by 50 tons per snowfall event. Here are some resources you can use to enhance your stormwater program. Check out the MS4 Digital Document Library to find fact sheets, guidance documents, and examples of how local MS4 staff across the state are implementing their MS4 programs. The Minnesota Stormwater Manual has technical content and guidance for all things stormwater, from engineering design standards to case studies. Review the MS4 General Permit for exact permit language related to the requirements discussed in this presentation. If you're managing a stormwater program and want a rough gauge of your compliance status, complete a self-audit following the MPCA's guidance. If you still have questions, reach out to an MPCA stormwater staff. Thank you for your time.